Okay, everyone. So the first step in generating our map of asylum applications is going to be to kind of clean up our data so that our data contains principally the piece that we are interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my data here. So I'm just going to say copy. I'm going to create a new I'm actually just going to paste everything because there aren't weird formats on this. And then just for the sake of prioritization, I'm going to go ahead and sort this by the 2016 number. So I'm going to say sort here, and we'll see. Okay, so it's giving me column letters. So column J is going to be my 2016 numbers. I'm going to do largest to smallest, just to give me a way to kind of subselect some things. Now, there are ways that we can programmatically split, that's actually the function, split this data so that we could get all of the countries. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're basically just going to take like the top 10 and extract those two-letter ISO codes manually. So the first thing I'm going to do, obviously, as you all are doing this, you are going to be keeping a careful log file. I'm going to change this TSV from a TSV, which is a tab separated value file, to a, let's try that, to an XLSX file. And the reason why is that a TSV file, CSV file, TXT file, all of these things are what we call a flat file. They will not preserve formulas. They will not preserve multiple sheets. Okay, so I'm going to do this. So I'm going to call this asylum applications.xls. Let's say 08 to 16, and save this on my desktop. So now I know that not only is my original data set preserved here, but any changes that I make here will also be preserved. So I'm going to go about winnowing down this data. I'm simply going to delete rows that are not interesting to me. And like I said, I'm going to take, in this case, just the top 10 rows and worry about the rest later. So I'm going to delete these and add a new column here and kind of just copy this over. So I know that this one is DE. Sorry. That was a little... So interestingly, what I've come across is two separate data sets embedded here together, non-obviously to me. So we see ASY app for Germany, and then we see NASY app for Germany as well. And so the question is new versus, I believe it's new versus all. So we can see there's actually a difference of approximately, oh gosh, I can't do that math, 20,000, 23,000. So there's quite a lot more. So there's about 23,000 repeat applications represented in this data set. So I'm going to go with the NASY, so we're going to have only 5 countries in this case. But again, this is simply demonstrates the principles. So this is Italy, France, EL, I'm not sure actually, find out, and AT. And some of this will be news to me. So in this case, I'm going to remove also these values. Again, this is all dependent on what's of interest to you. This is simply for the purposes of this exercise. So that, move this. So again, obviously a very manual process in this case. We will, in the coming weeks, we will talk about ways to do this in a more efficient manner. Okay, so we also note here that I've actually lost my header row here, but I have this. So if I insert a row, that this is 2008, 2009, 2010, 11, 2012. Now, 2015, skipped a bunch. So what I want to point out here actually is that I don't I don't, in principle, have to remove everything. I do need to have only a single entry per outline, so per country, basically. But I can have, for example, multiple years is fine, because when it comes to actually rendering the map, I'm going to specify the column. In this case, I'll probably specify 2016. I'll specify the column that I want the map to render. So I can actually have more data in my spreadsheet, for example, in my data set, the data side of this. I can have more data there than I want to render in a particular map, which is handy if you think about it, because let's say in the future, I happen to have found all of this data, in the future, if I want to come back and say, oh wait, I want a map of 2010 for comparison, I don't have to make an entirely kind of new set of files, right? I can use the work that I've done initially to kind of give myself a launching point there. So here I'm going to save this down as a separate file. So I'm now going to go ahead and save it back as a CSV. Doing so, doing this is going to save just this active sheet. So it says, exports the data on the active sheet to a text file that uses commas to separate values and cells. Actually pretty good documentation there. So in this case, I'm going to say top 5 asylum apps 2016. I'm saying 2016 because I sorted by 2016 data. And I'm going to save that out and save the active sheet, continue. And now I can close this. It's going to ask me if I want to save the changes. I don't need to save those. Additionally, I need to actually make myself a copy of this KML table. Now, fortunately for us, we don't really need to worry about the mechanics of KML too much, although I'm happy to discuss them in class. Also note that, maps are highly political things. And so there may be aspects of these maps that seem off to you. That's something to check for before you use someone's shapefiles. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm just going to download this as a CSV, which again, I realize might seem kind of strange. We're literally not going to look at this file. We're just going to upload it to our own Google account and use it to generate the map. So now I have copies of all of those things. What I need to do is switch over to a Google account where I can actually generate a Fusion table of my own. I'm going to come over to a new tab. I'm going to go straight to Drive. Again, I cannot do this. Your Columbia account doesn't have this functionality enabled, so you'll need to do this on some other Google account. But again, this is just to kind of illustrate the principles of the mapping that we're going to do. So I'm going to go here, and again, I already have Fusion Tables enabled. But if I go here to More, you'll see Google Fusion Tables. What you all will do is you'll say Connect More Apps. You'll search for Google Fusion Tables and add it. Now, Google Fusion Tables is a really nice tool for a number of reasons. One of the things that I like about it is that when we add data to it, it prompts us to do responsible things like talk about where we record where we got the data from. So for example, in this case, I'm going to start by choosing this world country boundaries KML. I can leave it as a comma separated file, UTF-8. That's an encoding. Don't need to worry too much about that. And it will take on the work of parsing that out. By default, it's going to select the column names in the first row. That all looks good to me. Now, this is the great part. I can choose whether I want people to be able to export this data. Since it was openly available and downloadable, I'm going to leave that as well. The attribution is not provided in the original table. This could be a problem if we are talking about using this for journalism, right? So again, where you get your KML, there are a bunch of different places that we can get KML, and there are, for example, through the libraries, you'll be able to get KML. There's also another mapping file type called shapefiles, which have a .shp extension. Those can be converted into KML files, so you can also obtain those from an authority. But in any case, I have an option to put in the attribution page link, which is also great. And in this case, I'm going to leave the default description, but you would want to annotate that to say sort of where you got it and when and why. So now I have my own copy of this, and you can see that right off the bat, it has auto-generated a map because basically it has seen that there's a column named geometry. It has inferred that this has map KML polygon data in it. And this, unlike the starting map, everything is red here because it has the boundaries, but I haven't told it to color the country shapes by anything. So in order to use this to generate a map that is a chloroplex map that is shaded according to values, for example, I need to first have those values be available. So there I have my first Google Fusion table. I'm now going to create another one, and I'm going to upload my comma-separated data that has my country codes with the new asylum applications in it. So essentially just, once again, doing a pretty straightforward upload here. This, again, is a great place to record where my data came from. So I'm going to say, you know, this is from the Eurostat database. Eurostat. There's the link where I got the original data. Great prompt there. For example, what would you like to remember about this data in a year? I promise it will feel like a year, even if it isn't a year. And so this is pretty basic right now. It's just showing us this. It's showing us this by, you know, in exactly the same format that it did previously. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this column. And specifically, I'm going to give it a column name. I'm going to call this country code because I want it to be descriptive. Again, in all cases, we want to provide ourselves with as much guidance and as much metadata as possible. And now I'm going to go about combining these two. So the thing to appreciate here is that I now have one table that has all of the shapes of my countries and these ISO 2-digit codes in one column. I have data that also has ISO 2-digit codes in one column. The great thing is that what I'm going to do is I like to call this zipping it up. I'm going to zip these two files together, and it's going to create a new table that has the data from both of them matched on those ISO country codes. What this means is that if I find a world country boundaries, for example, table that is useful to me and that I like and I trust its provenance, I can hold on to that and I can merge that with data sets over and over and over again. And so let's do an example. My new map, I'm going to go to File, Merge, and it's going to ask me to find a table to merge with. And in my case, I'm going to choose my world country boundaries. And it's going to ask me the two columns that it should match up the merge on. So the country code is an obvious choice on the left. On the right, I can actually browse through, and I recall that ISO 2-digit has the country codes on it. Now, you'll notice that the list on the left is much shorter than the list on the right. Because I'm choosing my data table first, the resulting map is only going to show those countries for which I have data. I choose next. It's saying, what do you want to bring into this? I don't have to bring all the data in. I'm going to in this case because I can edit out the additional data. It doesn't have to show on like pop-ups, for example. So I'm going to keep all the data, but that's also not a requirement. And now I'm going to choose View Table. And so now it's already merged these together. And all that's left for me is to look at this map and then customize its view so that it actually has some representative meaning. So just to illustrate what's happened here, again, it's auto-created a map of geometry. You can see that only a handful of these have appeared. And if I click on it, it says, okay, there's Italy, there's Austria, there's Germany, whoops, and here's France. And I don't know what happened to our EL data. Does not seem to have a KML matching. So this is something that we maybe need to go back and troubleshoot. In a minute, we'll come back and we'll see how to customize this map so that it actually reflects some information as opposed to simply being red outlines on a base map.